Okay, so we're working on project 2. This is the second video in a 2-part video series on this for typography summer class. Excuse me. The first part was about just getting text aligned properly, the right point size, and the right width for the columns, and also the correct font for each one of these. So that was in the last video. Now I have saved that, so save as grayed out, and I'm going to close that because I'm ready to move on to the next portion of project 2. I'm going to open my project 2 folder. And I have my Helvetica Microsoft Word document here. It's basically the text that is found in that first paragraph on page 52 of the book. Now, we just spent time in InDesign doing all these alignments. Flush left, rag right, flush right, rag left, justified, centered. Well, for the Helvetica one, it's going to be a little bit different. We want nothing aligned, okay? This is a random setup. There's a good example of it on page 108. But I'm going to, you don't want it to look like the one on page 108, guys. This is your design, okay? So this is just an example on page 108. I want to see what you can do with your creative minds. I don't want to necessarily see you duplicate this layout that's on page 108, okay? This is just an example. It's showing how one person approached not aligning the typography, and it looks pretty cool. Now, what I typically will do is before I design for anything, I read the copy. Because design exists and typography exists. They exist solely to represent what the copy says. So design exists to honor content. Typography exists to honor content. So the first thing I will do when I am getting ready to design something is I will read the content because I'm going to design around it. Now the book really doesn't cover this portion of it, and the example provided was not really as well thought through in my opinion as it could have been. Because I know as a designer I am designing to honor this content, this being the content. So it talks about Helvetica and how this typeface originated as a Swiss design. It's Swiss origin. You guys understand probably that the Swiss make really great things that are really accurate and efficient and stand the test of time. Swiss watches are very expensive. Just the way they design things is very, very, very well designed. So it's a matter of efficiency is what this typeface was designed for. Now, sans serifs were in existence before Helvetica, but they just really didn't catch on. Now, this is what the type says. This is what this copy says. They didn't catch on. They had the names grotesque put at the end of them, like Oxenden's grotesque. It's a typeface. It's a sans serif. It was invented long before Helvetica, but people didn't like them. But around the 1950s, 1957 specifically, when Helvetica was created, it was done so with such regalia. There was tons of advertisement put out there. Look at Helvetica, the new efficient typeface. Look at Helvetica, the international typeface. The world embraced it. So for the first time in the history of typography, sans serifs finally were being embraced. The Haas Foundry, which is, we know a foundry is some place that made type. They're the people that melted the lead down and made the lead letters. But they would hire designers to create these typefaces. Now, Edward Hoffman and Max Meitinger, he's German, these two were accredited with developing the typeface Helvetica. However, it's really Max Meitinger who gets the credit. Edward was kind of a partner in it. But this was designed by both Ed and Max. And what happened is the Haas Grotesque was the name they gave it initially, but they were like, let's get away from this grotesque stuff. It's a Swiss design. They were very proud of this whole Swiss movement, how it just kind of came from that and reflected some of that Swiss. And the Swiss design movement is awesome, by the way, if you look that up. So I would look up the Swiss Design movement if I'm designing for a Swiss font. But they're like, this is just not very marketable. The word grotesque is not a marketable word. So they initially, this is not in the copy. I know quite a bit about Helvetica. There's even a movie on Helvetica, which maybe we should watch. But Helvetica, it came about by being named Helvetia. Helvetia is a Swiss term that means basically Swiss, of Swiss descent or Swiss design. But they're like, let's mess around a little bit. Somehow they did some studies and they learned that the word Helvetica was a little bit more marketable than the word Helvetia. So they renamed the typeface Helvetica. So Helvetica went through 3 different namings: Haas Grotesque, Helvetia, and Helvetica, as far as I know. Now, when Helvetica came out, people were like, oh my God, Helvetica is awesome. And the advertising age in 1957, which if you guys have ever watched Mad Men, anybody watch Mad Men? Yes, the Mad Men were using Helvetica right and left. I don't even know if, I haven't watched it. I've watched part of it. And I need to because it's part of pop culture and it's part of the history of design. But I haven't spent that kind of time. I'm building cabins. So I need to watch that when I'm maybe old and gray. I would imagine that somewhere there's reference to Helvetica in there, whether it's in the design that they're doing and they're showing, or they might even, I doubt that they'll mention it by name, but my guess is it's in that movie. Does anybody here know anything about Helvetica? Anybody know anything about Helvetica? A lot of people say it's just a boring typeface. I'm going to share with you quickly a couple of logos. Have you seen this logo before? Some of you might even have this car or a vehicle. Yeah, Jeeps are awesome. I'd love to have me a Wrangler. That is Helvetica. Okay, yeah, that's a boring typeface. Yeah, it's a whatever typeface. Yeah, it's overused, blah, blah, blah. But that is Helvetica. Guess where Helvetica is here? Well, JCPenney uses Helvetica. Wow, that's a major company. Oops, I better put the word logo after this. Sears uses Helvetica. And that is a Helvetica A. That teardrop right there. There is a game online. Oh, I love it. Love it. Helvetica versus Ariel. Ariel is a bastardized version of Helvetica, meaning they copied it and tried to sell it. But there is a game. I don't know if I'm clicking on the right thing here. Oh, that's just a description. There's a game, and it's in an app that you can, it'll flash a word, and you have to guess whether it's Helvetica or Ariel. And at first, you're kind of bad at it because you may not necessarily see the differences. Here we are. Let's see if this will give us. You may not be able to see the differences between the two. Darn it. But here is, this is not the game, by the way. This is just showing some major differences between Ariel and Helvetica. Well, Ariel here, this Ariel does have a teardrop, not normally. But for instance, Helvetica, it has the terminal ends or the finishing ends. Oh my, excuse me. I'm having a problem with my website here. On Ariel, these kind of come at an angle on the C's and the G's, whereas Helvetica, they go perfectly horizontal. On the G, there's almost like an arrow. There's a finishing stroke here on the G that is non-existent in Ariel. On Helvetica's R, it has this nice curvature with a nice terminal stroke. Ariel's just kind of... With the lowercase a, again, on Ariel, you have this angle on the finishing or beginning of that stroke. On Helvetica, it's perfectly horizontal. And on Ariel, oftentimes it doesn't have the teardrop. It depends on which Ariel you get, who's created it. Helvetica has a very distinctive teardrop, and Helvetica also starts to thin. It has a lot more distinctive thinning going on where this bowl meets the main stroke of the letter. It also has a nice terminal end that sticks out, whereas Ariel does not. Again, here's that angle that Ariel has. Helvetica, again, it's very upright. This one is not angled, whereas this is. And also Ariel on the T, on the top stroke of that T, it's angled, but on Helvetica, it's straight across. So there are visual differences between the two. They are not negligible by most people. However, if you're taking a typography class, or if you're a graphic designer or a web designer, you do definitely know the difference. When we had a student in Portfolio Day who was bragging about using the font Arial, the industry professionals were like cringing. And they're like, why would you use Arial when you have Helvetica? Helvetica is much better designed than Arial, and Arial is just a bastardized version of Helvetica. Now, bastardized is an actual typographic term. It's not because I want to say curse words or bad words, but that's what it is. So you'll be able to, if you have an app, type in Arial versus Helvetica and play that game. I'm not finding it real quick. Now, on this particular use of Helvetica, we don't have the finishing terminal on this A. So we do also have, folks, but we might have a slight one on the lowercase version, slight terminal. But designers do go in and edit typefaces and convert them to outlines and mess with them. So some of them have terminal in, some of them don't. Sears uses Helvetica. Crate & Barrel uses Helvetica. That's a company that sells a bunch of housewares. So Helvetica is everywhere. It's everywhere. That's pretty low resolution, but that's Helvetica. There we go. And this one does have the terminal in. On the terminal on the A. Okay, this is going nowhere quick, but that little bottom stroke of the A, it does flare out. So that designer left it. Massimo Vignelli, he's a famous, well, he passed away, a year and a half ago? This guy and his wife owned their own design firm, and he used Helvetica for a lot of stuff. He and his wife. And if you ever have anybody gone to Grand Canyon or Canyon de Chelly, well, not Canyon de Chelly, Bryce Canyon, anybody been to any national park? Which national park have you been to? A lot of them. Awesome. Arches, Bryce, Zion. There's a whole bunch of national parks out there. Well, the national park system, which thank goodness that we reserved that space for us to enjoy. Otherwise, it would have been developed and houses built all around it, all these gorgeous places. Well, they did, Vignelli did all the national parks, their identity. And they also did the subway for New York City. Was also, all of that was redesigned by Vignelli. Let me find national park, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm just going to click on this. They're using Helvetica for the national parks. The train system, the subway in New York City. The typefaces they're using for that, because it's clean, clear, and easy to understand, all Helvetica. Okay? It used to be a hot mess before Vignelli got a hold of it. So design does matter. Design matters in that, hey, I'm not from New York, I'm going to travel to New York, and I'm going to use their mass transit, and if it's not designed well, I'll have a hard time, I'll get confused, and I could get lost pretty quickly, possibly even be endangered because I don't know where I'm going, and might end up in a part of town I shouldn't be in. So design definitely matters. But Helvetica was used in the New York subway system. And Vignelli was a lover of Helvetica. Now, on the opposite range, somebody who absolutely despises Helvetica and never uses it is this lady here. She's a very famous designer. Her name is Paula Scher. And if you do watch, I think we might watch the video or the movie on Helvetica if I can get a hold of it. She can't stand Helvetica, never uses it, rarely uses it. I think never uses it. But she does beautiful typography. The math behind her, she does those are paintings that she does just kind of to decompress on the weekends and things like that. So that's not necessarily graphic design work that she's done. That's actual large paintings that she does. But she's a fabulous designer in New York City. But you have also Vignelli, who was a fabulous designer, who's gone, who used Helvetica for everything. So Helvetica is part of our daily lives. We see it all the time. Now, Helvetica has a very large X height. Is it vibrating, or is it just me?
It's vibrating.
It's weird. Meaning that the bulk of the letter, like the lowercase x, it's really big, and the ascenders and descenders are pretty small. It's a very, very readable typeface, too. Extremely readable, which is part of the attraction for using it. Now, if we understand Helvetica a little bit better, then we can design for it better. The other thing I'd like to talk about, because if design exists to honor content, we need to possibly look up the Swiss design movement. You guys should spend a little bit more time than what I am here. I'm just going to click on images. You can kind of see some of the crazy cool stuff from the Swiss design movement. And things that are designed in homage to that movement. Oh my gosh, is that Helvetica? It sure is. Oh my gosh, is that Helvetica? It sure is. Oh my gosh, more Helvetica. Now that's a combination of a few different letters, but the Swiss design movement doesn't necessarily mean they always used Helvetica. It's just part of it. But if you look up the Swiss design movement, you see a lot of angular things, a lot of grids rotated. They're not straight up and down grids. So the grid structure is really important in the Swiss design movement. Helvetica looks like it's almost on a grid structure, but then they go and twist it up a little bit. There are some pretty famous Swiss design movement posters of people skiing. This is a famous poster right here. But there's a lot of rotation. There's also, because the Swiss flag is white and red, and it has that cross in it, you'll see a lot of that with regards to the Swiss design movement. A lot of white and red. Doesn't have to be, but you'll see a lot of that. So it's a modern approach to typography that's really oftentimes clean, but it's slightly chaotic, but really clean. Clean in that clean line. Use of grid is fairly clean. It's just rotated, that kind of thing. So I would encourage you guys to look up well more than what I have. Here's just them talking about the grid here. Look up the Swiss design movement and have a better understanding of that before you design something that is related to it.
Are those hands mixed with guns?
Yes, those are hands that become guns. So as you're shaking, that's brilliant, isn't it? I don't know if that's from Pushpin Studios or who that's from, but yeah, another Swiss design. That looks like a Woody Pirtle design, but I don't know. I'd have to look it up. Woody Pirtle does really I don't know if that's Woody, but he does fantastic things where he makes an object have dual purpose, just like this. It's phenomenal. His name's Woody Pirtle. I don't know that he did this, but I will show you Woody Pirtle and his work. This Stop Gum Trafficking from Amnesty International. So he definitely combines graphics in ways that become more than just one object. So here's the smokestack with the smoke coming out of it. The smoke becomes a skull. He's done quite a bit of this. Here's he did a poster for, I think it was American Institute of Graphic Artists for they were doing something in Iowa. And it was New York City designer comes and visits Iowa. Well, so he crams together the Empire State Building and an ear of corn. It's like, my God, that is just perfect. So Woody Pirtle, fabulous, fabulous designer as well. And he works with Paula Scher, or did work with her. He did a logo for the hair. It's actually the hair family. So there's a logo. I mean, he mixes things just brilliantly. But again, he and Paula Scher work together. Very, very fabulous design. Okay, so now that I understand a little bit more about the Swiss design movement, I am now ready to think about Helvetica in a different light. Again, the book, they're just putting type down and they're not really thinking about it. But that's not what I'm looking for here. I want you guys to think about it. So in InDesign, we're going to create, now usually I'll sketch some stuff out, I'll do some research and try to figure out what my layout's going to look like. I don't normally design on the fly, but I'm going to design on the fly today. As an advanced designer, somebody who's been doing it for years, I can design on the fly without putting much sketch down, but I do still like to sketch. So I'm going to go to File and create a new document. This is going to be a different size than the first part of this project. This one is going to be a 10-inch by 10-inch document. How many picas by how many picas wide is 10 inches by 10 inches? What if I have to convert that to picas? 60. Good answer, because there's 6 picas in an inch. If you take 10 inches, multiply it by 6 picas, 10 times 6, 60 picas. So I'm going to make this 60 picas by 60 picas. Now, you'll notice that it has 60p0. It automatically put the 0 at the end of that. What does that 0, what's that for? Points. Yeah. Yeah, Ash says that 0 is for points. Right now it's 60 picas, 0 points. So if I had something that were 60.5 picas, I would have 60 pica and 6 points. Because there's 12 picas. Now that gets confusing. I oftentimes ask students, how many points is a half of a pica? Like, okay, a pica is, okay, 1/6, okay, there's 12 points in a pica, but you guys know, 9 times out of 10, if I ask you that off the fly, I'll say, how many points in a half of a pica? You'll go 5, and I'll go, no. If there were 10 points in a pica, yeah, that'd be 5, but there's 12 points in a pica. So just a little, I'm going to ask you someday, and I bet you'll answer at 5, but there's 6 points in half of a pica. All right, columns. Right now I'm not going to deal with columns. I mean, I could. Actually, you know what? I was just researching the Swiss design movement, and they used a lot of columns. Maybe I should use a lot of columns. I just said I wasn't going to, but now I'm retracting that statement. They use quite a few columns. I'm going to put 5 columns in there. You guys don't have to use 5 columns. You can use 3 or 10, or I don't care, as long as it works. Space between the columns is 1 pica. That's fine. My margins are 1/2 inch. Okay, I can live with that. Now I can hit the preview button. I didn't hit OK. I hit preview. And this gives me a 5 pica grid, because I told it to. It's 10 inches by 10 inches, which is 60 pica by 60 pica. And if I want to change something, I can right here. And Janice, you have a question, right? Yeah. What's that? Turn that off. Oh, thank you. Always turn that off. Yes, unless you're doing a book. Janice asked me, should we keep facing pages on? No, we should turn that off. Thank you, Eagle Eye. Appreciate that. Turn that facing pages off. Now, you'll notice that it doesn't do a horizontal grid. As of now, and I'm not sure why InDesign hasn't done this yet because grids are so important, we typically do always use a vertical grid. But a horizontal grid that runs left to right has to be done manually. Now I'm going to hit OK. Now, normally I don't really build a horizontal grid. I'll just have things kind of lined up along the grid. So there's my grid. Now, this is going to be pretty much purely typography. I don't want to see Max Mettinger's picture in here or Edward Hoffman's picture. I don't want to see the Swiss flag necessarily. And I know if you look at the walls, you'll see that I think there's a Helvetica poster over there, though this is not this project. Okay, the Helvetica poster is a different size and everything. And they have type aligned. This is all supposed to be non-aligned. It's supposed to be asymmetrical, random settings. Now, this is where we'll learn a lot about the features in InDesign beyond, just setting type in a box. So, let's say I'm going to make my H kind of big for Helvetica. Now, you don't have to make your H big, and it doesn't even have to be uppercase. It could be a lowercase h if you wanted to. I'm going to draw a text box. I'm not aligning it to the grid. I'm just drawing a text box. And it doesn't have to be huge, because the type I'm going to put in there is not big. So maybe I should calm that down a little bit. And I'm going to type in, with the type tool, I'm going to type in a capital H. Now, this needs to be Helvetica. It is not Helvetica. It is Minion Pro. Okay? If I see Minion Pro on this poster, you are doing yourself a bad disservice. This all needs to be Helvetica. Now, I do have a trick for you. I'll see if it works. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Here's the trick to, we'll see if it works. I could be wrong. I'm going to, in theory, show you a trick that will make Helvetica the default font, so every time I draw a text box, it'll automatically be Helvetica. We'll see. Sometimes this works, again, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm going to bring up, right now the typographic control panel is not up because I am working with the selection tool. I am actually going to hit Command and the letter T. This brings up a character panel. That's different than the control panel at the top. You'll notice that this typeface is highlighted. It says Minion Pro. Well, we want to use Helvetica, and we want to use the one with the ST and the D at the end. So I need to go find that. Oh my gosh, I don't see it. Not at the top. So I'm going to have to go get in Helvetica. Helvetica New LT with the ST and the D, that's the one. Anything that has the STD at the end is probably the one that I've given you. Now, by default, it may choose a Helvetica Thin Condensed or whatever. I'm going to choose Helvetica Medium. It's number 65. Oh my Lord, look at all that Helvetica New has to offer. You have so many styles of Helvetica. These are type styles. Italic, bold, heavy, black, black italic. Oh my Lord. Now, you don't have to go with Helvetica regular or anything. You know what? I want this first letter to be really bold. So what's the heaviest thing we have here? Well, I could look and see if they have a Helvetica black. Let's see. Let's just go Helvetica black. Do they have a Helvetica black? There it is. It's number 95. Oh my gosh, that's so heavy. Now I'm going to close this character panel and let me see if I draw a new text box and start typing it in. Darn it, Minion Pro! See, in theory, that was supposed to stick to Helvetica. Sorry, it did not. Now, if you have multiple text boxes, I'm going to create multiple text boxes really quick. When does that tool work? Why would we use that tool? So let's say I have all these text boxes, separate text boxes with different words. If you wanted to change all of these text boxes to one font all at one time, now, if you didn't know this trick, you'd have to go, oh, let me highlight this and make it Helvetica. You can select them all with the black arrow tool, the selection tool, hit Command-T for the type, and then you can choose Helvetica. Of course, we do Helvetica New. Maybe I just want them to be all thin, and it will all change them all at the same time. So this is where you would use the character panel, the floating one, over the character control panel, which is at the top. I'm going to close that, just so you know. Now, I love studying letters. Now, did you guys just see what I did? I took that little H, and I'm making him really big, really quick. Bam, just like that. What? In just a split second, I'm going to double click on this, make it just the same size as that type box. In a split couple of seconds, I made that little H a great big H. Perry is over there going, how did you do that, lady? Maybe he already knows. I don't know. Do you want to know, Perry? Do you want to know how I did that? He does. I am the envy of designers when I do this. Hey, let me make that H really big. Okay, done. Well, let me make that H really small. Okay, done. For you guys to function intuitively as designers, meaning you design based off how it looks and feels, and I'm not going in there telling this is, so many points tall H. I don't care. I'm doing this till it looks good. You want to hold down, first, get your black arrow tool, which is your selection tool. You hold down Shift and Command. This is on a Mac. On the PC, it'd be Shift and Control. You hold down Shift and Command. Then you click on a corner node and you start dragging. Now, if you click and wait and start dragging, it'll show you in live action, the H. If I click and drag and don't wait, it's just going to show me the box. And then when I let off of the mouse, keeping a hold of Shift and Command, let off the mouse, you'll see it. So You can take it a little more slowly by holding down Shift Command, click, don't drag yet, just wait, then start dragging. Oh my gosh, you can see it actually live. Okay, now I do like using the grid a little bit, so I am going to increase the size of this letter, and I'm going to move it to about the width of this grid line. Okay, so these grid lines, these pink lines, it starts at this pink line, whoa, but it doesn't, and it ends at this pink line here. I'm not going over the gutter. Now, I love negative space. Negative space is the white space. We oftentimes neglect that and don't look at it. But if I look at this letter H, and I look at this negative space, I wonder if I could be clever in that I could copy and paste this. So I'm going to Alt drag it. I'm going to rotate this. And when I rotate it, I hold down the Shift key. And I am going to position this H more or less directly over his buddy here. Now it's the same color, so it's kind of hard to get those exactly accurately lined up. Does anybody see what I'm starting to get here? Let me hit the W key. The W key, by the way, the W key means what you see is what you get. It's a print preview. If I'm looking at the negative space here, and I know that the Swiss flag has a cross in it, what am I starting to develop here? You guys see the cross starting to develop? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. So I am holding down the Alt key and dragging this, then I'm rotating it, holding down the Shift key when I do it, and I'm putting these in position. And oh my gosh, I am starting to see the Swiss cross from the flag. I'm basically having some fun with type. And it relates to the subject. Now, I'm not saying that you all have to do this. I'm not saying that at all. And this is my original thought. It's kind of irritating when we have critique and I'm like, well, that's nice, but isn't that the thought I had in class? Could you be a little bit more original? And, you know, in your portfolios, you're not designing things that are already designed. You're designing new things. So here, I have the Swiss flag cross out of 4 H's. It relates to the typeface and the history of it and the creation of it. Now, if I wanted to, I could take all of these, and now I'm using the black arrow tool. I'm clicking away from these. I'm not clicking on one. If I click one and drag, it'll move it. Okay, so I'm clicking outside of it and dragging and coming in contact with all of them. And I can group those up. If I like what I've got, I can go to Object and Group. That means when I move it, it'll move just the whole thing instead of one of them. And I can, let me zoom out. Command minus is zooming out. I can increase these or decrease these the way I see fit. I'm making this really big. Holy cow. I am making something out of type, and it no longer looks like type. So when I say we have to use type, I don't want to see pictures of this or that or the other. This is all about the actual letters from this typeface. This gets more exciting. It's not as boring. Now, where am I going to put all the rest of this stuff? Now, because I didn't do a sketch, I don't know. I might even take this and rotate it slightly to go with the idea that a lot of the Swiss design movement's graphics were rotated. I'm going to increase it even more. Holy crap! This thing's really getting big. That's all right. I like it. And it's not just because, you know, I like it. It's because it makes sense. It makes sense to what research I did on the Swiss design movement. Now we're talking. Look at that. That's crazy. Now this is just the foundation of the design. I haven't even put any rest of the copy in there yet. You know, I've got to figure out what I'm going to do about that. So here, I'm only limited by my imagination. I am limited a little bit by the fact that I'm learning new software as well. So you got to give yourself some credit there. This is not as easy as I make it. Look, I've been doing this for more than half of my life. I've been doing this longer than some of you guys have been alive. That is so crazy to even have to say that. That's wild. So for me to make it look easy, it should look easy because I've been doing this a long time. For you to do it, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Now, I need to get some body copy in here. And because, you know, this design exists to honor the content, I need some content. So I'm going to go to File and Place. I'm going to go find my Helvetica stuff. So I've got it hidden in my Project 2 folder. There's my Helvetica type from Microsoft Word document. I hit Open, and when I click, when I'm out in the gray space like this, and I don't have and I've got the preview on, it's like you don't see the type. Oh my gosh, let me hit the W key. Oh, there it is. Now that gets really noisy. I like to oftentimes work with grids off temporarily because that is like, whoa, it messes with my mind. So if you hit the W key, assuming you're not in a type box, hit the W key, what you see is what you get. This would be what you would get when you're printing. It doesn't print the stuff off in the pasteboard. So I'm going to move this over. The grid structure is important to me. Heck, the H's just created my grid structure. But I have to be careful. I can't align too many things because this is supposed to be a random setup. I'm not supposed to do any alignments. So right now, if I decided, oh, I'm going to rotate this right here, the same angle as the other stuff, I'm going to put it right here. Well, no, I'm not, because the instructions say this has to be random. That's flush left, ragged right, and it's all aligned. So every line of type needs to not align. Okay, this is wrong. I want to make sure you understand that. If I even if I said, oh, I'm going to center this stuff, nope, that's center alignment. It tells us this needs to be random. Do not use, do not align it. So I'm like, oh, great. What am I going to do now? So I'm going to hit Command Z a few times and get it back upright for just a second. Let's park it where I can see it. I do need the word Helvetica because it's about the typeface Helvetica. I have that word in here. So I'm going to copy it. Oh, by the way, this is all probably Minion Pro or Calibri or Cambria or whatever. You want to make sure you select all that and make sure it's the right typeface. So in this case, it's Helvetica New. And it can be whatever one you want, whatever makes sense. So I'm just going to do a Roman for now or a medium. Medium's nice. A little heavier. And I, of course, do not want hyphens. So let's go ahead and take care of that. Take all hyphens off. Hyphens are bad. Now, I've done some amazing things on this design, but I haven't saved it, which is playing with danger because it looks like we're going to get some storms coming in here, and maybe the lightning will strike and blow out my computer. So I should probably save this. I'm going to call Project 2 Part 2. Project 2 Part 2. I might even call it Helvetica. It'll help me understand what's what. So Project 2 Part 2. Now, the design here is black and white. But I did some research. The design in the book is black and white. Right now, this is black and white. Do you guys think I should introduce a color to this? And if so, what color would that be? Red. Yeah, a nice Swiss red. Well, if I go, you're like, well, where do you get your colors? I want to play with color. Where are they? We use the Swatches panel for color. You'll notice that it's very limited in what colors you can choose right now. Now, if I choose these H's with the selection tool, oh, hey, guess what? My video's done. If I choose these H's with the selection tool and I don't double click and turn into the type tool, you'll see on the Swatches panel, it's very small, very hard to see. Most people don't even notice this. There is, you can color the formatting for the container, which is the box these are in. So I'm going to, let me make that red. Oh, no, that is not what I wanted. No, that looks horrible. That is not what sometimes I'll do that and I'll have some happy accident. It looks kind of cool and I'll pretend like I did it on purpose, but this looks horrible. So let me hit Command Z on that. I want the type to be red. So here you'll see this T. If I click on the T, oh, it won't let me. Oh no, why not? Because this is a grouped object. Oh, that sucks. Let me go to ungroup it and see now if I click on the T, I can make it red. So it does not like grouped objects. It gives you the now symbol, that little circle with a slash. So I had to ungroup it, make it red. Now I can go back and group it because I want them to move together as one unit. Now, this is fairly loud. I could also screen that red back. I can't do it right now because I grouped these back. So I'm going to ungroup them. And here is a tint. Let me click on the T. It's red. I can change the tint of this and make it softer and make this less of an impeding element. So you can adjust tints. Very cool. I'm going to group that back. So now this element being large, it's got enough emphasis just in the size. Do I need to go overboard on making it that brilliant red? I could. Right now I'm just going to screen it back for now. Now you are probably wondering, if I wanted more colors than what are here, how would I get those? Because maybe that red is not the best red. Maybe you did some more research and it's a deeper red. I don't know. If you want every printable color that we use in the industry, you want options to those. Every printable color based off the Pantone process color system, Pantone matching system. There's a little flyout menu in the upper right-hand corner of the Swatches panel. It's got 4 little horizontal lines and an arrow. If you click on that, you can go to the topmost item, which is New Color Swatch. And you'll get a new color swatch window. All of our colors are made from a combination of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Cmyk are the abbreviations. C for cyan, M for magenta, Y for yellow, K for key color black. You're going, why is there a K for black? Shouldn't it be CMYB? CMYK, key color black. Or for the color mode, we'll click on that. It'll stay in CMYK, but we want to go with the Pantone bugs. If I scroll down, I will start to see the Pantone options, Pantone Plus options. Now, if I'm printing on the paper that's in the printer, it's uncoated paper. So I'm going to choose Pantone CMYK uncoated for the paper type. And oh my gosh, my golly, look at all these colors I have to choose from now. Holy cow, there's so many. So I can choose a different tone of red. Maybe I like Pantone 49-8. If I click on that, I can hit the Add button, and it will add it to my Swatches panel. I'll hit Done, and I'll go to my Swatches, and you'll see there's Pantone P49-8. There we go. So I can now tell my H's, let me ungroup them. I can click on the type tool, type color, and make it Pantone 49-8. Yes, those are 2 different colors of red. And I'm going to save it. Now, it's been a while since we've had a break. So, and it's starting to rain. So let's take about 10 minutes. Come back at about 12, well, quarter after 3. Let's do about 15 minutes. Quarter after 3. We'll go play in the rain for a little bit and come back and we'll continue this. So I'm going to save it. So have a break or work on your break. Whatever you want to do. I'm going to take a break though. And I'll come back when you have questions like these. Sorry guys, one of my alumni came to visit and could not stop and talk for a minute. Okay. We ready to get back to it? Luke says, no, I think I want to go. What are we out of here? We're out of here at 4:50. We still got a little bit of time on this one. So let's, I don't want to design this whole thing, but I do want to talk about, I do want to design the whole thing really, because that's what I do. But I do want to talk about a little bit more about how, now I'm going to approach this without a lot of thought, just to get this going a little more quickly. We definitely need to have a headline in here. So I'm going to put Helvetica in its own box. And let me increase the size of that. Now, the word Helvetica doesn't have to stay intact as one word. We noticed that in the example provided, they've separated out letters and done all sorts of interesting things there. You could even separate it out phonetically, each syllable broken out rather. So for this, if I wanted to stack Helvetica, the H-E-L, then the V-E-T, I may want to copy and paste parts of the letters into other boxes. So let's say I decided vet is going to be in its own box. So I can highlight just the T, the V-E and the T, and then I'm going to hit edit and cut, which is Command X. And then I'm going to draw a separate text box and paste it, Command V. I'm going to do the same thing with Ika. Even though it's 2 syllables, I'm going to separate them out and create its own box. So I clicked on a box that was already there. Let me move it over. So, this is nice, even though it's not completely by syllable. It's 3 letters each box, which is a nice way to maybe approach it. So here, this is one approach to messing around with just the title, Helvetica. I could decide to rotate it. I might decide that I don't, though. I mean, we'll find out. Might want to group them before you rotate them. So, and if you want to try to click and drag over something, and it ends up grabbing some other things, like I've got this big H, you hold down the Shift key and click on the object and it will deselect it. So there's a shift-click method of grabbing things, so you can click on something, hold down the Shift key, and click on the next things. That's one way. And then group them. But I might rotate it the same angle as the other one. Actually, I kind of liked it non-rotated, so I'm going to go back. The body copy on this, right now I have flesh left, rag right, which is not at all what they're telling us to do in this assignment. What they're telling us is this type needs to have no alignments whatsoever. So I'm going to maybe use this box to copy and paste from. And what I might do is I might put stress on certain words that are really important. So I'm going to be doing probably a lot of copying and pasting from this text box. For instance, this first sentence, Helvetica is a sans serif typeface of Swiss origin. I might copy that. I'm going to leave this intact. Copy that, and I'm going to create a text box using the type tool. Now, what's frustrating is when I clicked to create a text box over this H, it keeps grabbing that big giant H. So what we might want to do is I might group these again, and you can lock them so that way they're just in position. When I start to drag another box over it, it doesn't click on that text box, and I hit Command V to paste that in there. So this Helvetica is of Swiss origin. That's going to be our leader, our first sentence of the paragraph. And even though we're not supposed to align things, I am going to possibly still work with some alignment, like you have the cross member of this, the crossbar of this H. I might align this type so that it roughly optically aligns to that. So secretly, I might be aligning some stuff, but overall, it doesn't look like I've got things perfectly aligned. Now, because I've focused so much stress on the Swiss stuff and my choice of using those H's to create this white cross, this Helvetica is sans serif typeface of Swiss origin. Maybe that is bigger than some of the other stuff. So the type itself, the body copy in the example provided, they're all the same point size. But in this example, I might decide to emphasize certain things and de-emphasize others. So, or I might make it all the same size. So I'm going to start drawing text boxes randomly and placing this text. And in this example here, where I have the next statement, this is incorrectly managed. It tells us this has to be a random setting. It cannot be aligned. This is what random means, is not aligned. This is flush left, rag right. So we have it aligned to the left. So I may have to rip out line by line my copy so that I can make it misaligned. The other thing I could do too, I could hit the return key to start a new paragraph and hit the space bar to make things non-aligned. Okay, so this is another way. So I don't have to draw 4 or 5 different text boxes. I could do it this way. So you could do it with hitting the return and hitting the space bar. So there's all sorts of different ways we can approach non-aligning. So those are not aligned. Now I do think that's a little small, so I'm going to go with a little bit bigger typeface. And when I print it, it may be too big. I don't know. You don't know quite what you have until you print it. I'm really having a hard time figuring out where in the world I want to stick this based off the background. And the top one looks pretty good, but I'm like, okay, this next statement is it feeling a little crowded in there. Do I want to rotate it? So you guys can play around with different ways to align it, rotate it, position it. Completely random. So it's a matter of, it's basically having some fun with layout. As long as it's in the right reading order. Make sure that things are in the correct reading order. You don't want to misalign things to the point where we're reading things out of order. Okay, so if this statement is meant to be read first, excuse me, that needs to kind of lead off of the headline. Maybe this is meant to be read second because it's a second statement or sentence. And so on and so on. So I hope you understand by what I'm doing here. One, how to make letters bigger and break them up into separate sections and break them up into separate lines and separate text boxes. I'll hit the W key so you can see what I have. That looks like a hot mess, but what I would really get when I hit the W key when it prints is this. I'm not finished with this. This one is left aligned. That's not correct. I would start breaking this up and playing with the various positions there. So basically, hopefully you guys have the idea of what's going on here. And so I think what I'll do is I'll let you guys just kind of keep working on your stuff. I'll walk around. If I see that there's some problems, I might address them. Or if you have problems, you could ask me questions. But I would just keep on working on this design. Again, nothing should be aligned. No type should be aligned to any other type. So I got to break this up quite a bit. But I think I'll let you guys get to work. Hopefully you get an understanding of what I'm doing here. It's not done, not even close. But you got an idea. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to stop the video, save it, and go from there.